for us to foster a sense of belonging for Islamic people. As Obama stressed yesterday in his address to the nation, our war at Volunteer has never been a war on Islam, and he mentioned that President Bush stressed the same thing as well, and we have in no way ever intended to sort of make Islam this point of contention.
Furthermore, in the Middle East, there have been recent revolutions, and that shows that they do want democracy, and so that makes them compatible, I believe.
But America has also, for many years, has been a predominantly Christian country, and while we ourselves have no kind of discrimination against Islam, our high protection of speech, as seen in the First Amendment, and can lead to discrimination, as seen by recent Florida Reverend Terry Jones burning a copy of the Quran.
Also, in the case West Virginia versus Barnett, the Supreme Court held that said that compulsory unification of ideas only leads to unanimity of the graveyard, and they said that members of the Jehovah's Witness faith could not be compelled to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
So you're arguing for limited government, is that what you're saying? And that limited government is powerful in this case? So what can, if we believe in the notion of limited government in our system, what can they do about someone burning the Quran?
Well, I think that's one of our the most important costs of rights in our society is that we have to, because we limit the government and we give so much freedom to the people, that we have to be able to accept these kind of things in our society despite the dangers that they may provide for us or our troops across the country.
And in the Supreme Court case, West Virginia versus Barnett, it does provide this threshold between freedom of speech and breaching on violating others' rights if you are to commit an act that or participate in speech that creates imminent lawless action.
I believe that's the case, Brandon versus
Brandon
Ohio.
versus-
So, to get your logic right, you're saying it's a good thing that we don't force people to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but it is a good thing to force them to do civic education.
And mandatory service.
Yeah. How do you work with those contradictions?
Well, political scientists such as Larry J. Sabato, who have proposed mandatory service, have felt that he would A, have to do so through an amendment, and B, he hopes that this would kind of create a sense of belonging, such as those in World War II, when the entire nation was behind the movement of going abroad and fighting what was clearly something that was wrong. And so he's hoping that through this amendment, we can achieve more bridging social capital and learn how to, as noted by Robert Putnam, breach differences.
Additionally, the Pledge of Allegiance is a very sort of specific, whereas civic education and mandatory service would be broader and wouldn't require citizens to sort of choose to say or be saying one specific set of things. Mandatory service would include a number of different possibilities, whether it be military service or voluntary service, and civic education includes a very broad array of subjects that does not involve simply one idea.
Also, mandatory, I'm actually against mandatory service, but a less extreme version of that could be mandatory service in schools. And you could create maybe a certain amount of volunteer hours before you graduate high school, or you could get a stipend for a certain amount of voluntary hours before college. And this would not be the kind of 2 years that Larry J. Sabato suggests that you have to take off from your personal life here and go volunteer abroad or somewhere here, but would be a less extreme version.
Is that consistent with our commitment to rights? Mandatory service, is it consistent with our commitment to individual rights?
No, it's not. No. Okay. It's not consistent with our commitment to rights. At the founding fathers weighed the possibilities of a classical Republican society or one of a Lockean view of rights, and they chose to be more rights-focused and not go with the obligations that were required of classical Republican
However,
community.
one could make the argument that we've become too committed to our rights and that the imposition of mandatory service would recreate this sort of sense of unity that they had at the founding that we've sort of come away from because we've grown so protective of our individual rights.
So what's the solution?
I believe one solution that has proven to work so far is that many high schools and many colleges require that their students participate in some extracurricular or volunteer association because they see that people are well-rounded when they associate with other people, especially those with whom they may not agree with, so that the social capital is built, referred to by Robert Putnam.
Also, many people choose not to volunteer or even participate in their societies simply because they don't have time. So certain businesses have begun giving paid time off for people to volunteer and be able to engage in our society that way.
Thank you very much.
So you guys gonna run for office now? What you said in your statement was that you think people should be running for office when you're that young, and I can tell you I'd vote for you. I'm struggling all the time in this unit today with the notion of what limited government means when we want to have people participate fully after the citizens. I'm not sure how to weigh those out, so we're really asking you for advice. And I think about if you all live on a block somewhere and then the guy living right next door to one of you doesn't do anything and you're all doing all the participating, what can we do to motivate or to engage that person? Is something I struggle with regularly. And I'm not sure about the notion of salad bar versus melting pot. Because when I have a salad, I always put a dressing on it, and I'm always concerned what that dressing might be like. And that is what you need to struggle with, because there are those that would argue, in the school that I work in, 74% of my students are Hispanic, and half of those are first-generation college goers. So they might argue that salad dressing is ranch. So those are the things. I'm glad you're struggling with those. You did a nice job with it. But the one that you will have to face in your lifetime more than we will ever face is the Hispanic question and language. Mike was putting it to you well. Over the course of your lifetime, the population is going to look fundamentally different than it has for me. And that is a struggle you're going to have to deal with, and you did it nicely.
I want to thank you too for your participation. Extremely thoughtful, very well done. I would just suggest though that civic education is really dealing too with process, and that's what you've been doing. You've been thinking of the theories, but you've been understanding how the process works, and that is really important. It is different than service. You use the skills, a lot of the same skill sets, but process is really important to learn, and you should be commended for learning it.
Thank you. That was a fun conversation. I hope you had as much fun as we did. I wish I could have these conversations in my college class.
Yeah.
So you guys are very impressive. Luke, your opening statement, I think you highlighted some things that need to be highlighted. How participation has become polarized and it has a sense to break us apart. We didn't have time to get into that, but I appreciate you bringing that up. Your use of Putnam kind of allowed us to talk about that avenue, and you brought up case law and the Constitution. So your opening statement was very good, and it gave us a lot of things to talk about. And I like your teamwork. Just so you know, we're looking for arguments. There's not a right or wrong answer to these questions. We're looking for arguments. And we guys help each other out, and that's wonderful. So you guys should be proud that you're helping yourself out like that and picking each other out. So that's impressive. Some things to think about as you move forward and you continue to be good citizens. The language issue. You may have read in your study of this that you can have either a national identity built on civicness or ethnic, right? And in Germany, it's based on blood and language. In the United States, we say it's based on liberty and equality. The language issue makes that more complicated, right? And if some of you were wanting to argue, language is important. Well, then I think you need to think about how do we bring the two together. How are we different from Germany? Well, we are, but how? Because obviously that cultural component is there, the Christianity part, the language part. You need to think about how to bring that together as we welcome diverse people. So think about that. Think about the flag salute versus civic education. I tried to get you in that kind of analogy, and I like the way you dealt with that. Maybe taking an oath is a lot different than learning a broad set of ideas. You need to ask yourself, would you be happy with a civic education program? At the end of the day, people would learn that maybe the Constitution isn't the greatest thing. Are you willing to have that kind of open debate, or do you want to force them just to be patriots and love the country no matter what? That's up to you. But think about how that might work. And then finally, one last point. You mentioned that the process of voting makes us more educated.